Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bikini and the Brain. Here with the lovely Ashley Kaltwasser, of course.
Hello, everyone.
Ashley, I gotta admit, your face is looking awesome. You know,
Thanks.
yes,
I'm all prepped out. Thanks.
yeah. Well, as you guys know, she had that
the laser thing.
the laser thing. I'm seeing it today. I'm seeing the results of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Last week, I was like, was it really worth it? Because you had good skin already. But now I'm starting to see, okay, it looks more vibrant. And that's with you being in prep, which is
that's gonna be that will be the true indication when I'm all lean and stuff. So but that's good to hear.
I've been seeing people do it a lot lately.
The CO2 laser is what we're referring to in case you're unaware.
Scary.
It is scary, but you're thinking about getting one. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It's just scary, But I did see a guy with my exact skin tone, do it recently, where I was like, oh, and he's looking pretty good. And so we'll see what happens. It's pretty inconvenient.
It is. You have to be a zombie. Your face will look like a zombie for a week.
Oh, that's so scary. Your face, It's not like a scar on your arm. It's like your face, That's scary stuff. Anyway, we're getting back to it, guys, with some questions. I'm surprised. Did any of those questions come up in this about your face thing?
Oh, I don't think so.
No. We have a bunch of questions we're going to go into again and see where this podcast ends up going. So we've been having fun with that lately. So keep those questions coming in. It gives us topics to talk about. And with that, I guess we'll jump right in, huh?
Yeah, let's dive right in. Okay, so the first question from Fitness Alana: tips for first-time competitors entering fit model division. So we have a lot of girls that are looking to compete this year in fit model. Since it's a new division, people are now starting to see what it's all about and feeling a little more comfortable about getting on stage. So what are some tips for these competitors, Adam?
One thing I'll say is take your time.
Yes.
Take your time. Fit model division. Everyone can do fit model division naturally. I think that's something to throw out there too. That's going to be a division that, you can take your time with it, and you can get to that pro level and that pro level look naturally, So that's going to be, I think, why a lot of reasons that girls who couldn't build up enough muscle in bikini are going to be going there. So it is going to be growing very, very fast. I think that's something that we're seeing a lot more of at shows. There's been multiple shows now, not just one or two, but multiple shows that have had bigger fit model divisions than bikini divisions already. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy how it started off so slow and now it's picking up, it's snowballed.
And I will say the concept, like the mind has shifted to that fit model is less than bikini. A lot of bikini girls are saying, oh, it's not that it's less, it's just that it's a division that fits my current physique best. And it's not like I ever was bikini. I just have always been this division. It's not like I'm not going down in muscle to this division. It's just that I've always been better for this division. Like I just never was good enough for bikini in terms of muscularity. I never had enough muscle.
Yeah. And that same thing happens too when they introduce wellness. You saw some of those bikini girls or even figure girls that maybe were a little more bottom heavy and that could put on muscle easy in that area, and they switched to wellness. So it's just another opportunity to get into a division that fits you more, not necessarily an easier division or a harder division. We don't look at it like that, but more so just what fits the physique. And even maybe I could go as far to say lifestyle too, because maybe someone could be bikini, but their lifestyle, maybe they have a lot of kids and they have a very demanding job at work. They just can't find the time to put on that much muscle and do everything it takes to get to bikini. So in that scenario, it could be more fitting for that person as well.
Yeah. And so what I would say in terms of tips would be my biggest tip for anyone doing fit model and my biggest tip, especially if you're a bikini, like NPC athlete, I would say get into it as soon as possible.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah. If you're ready, like especially if you're, and this tip kind of might not be for you specifically, Alana, but if you're one of these bikini athletes who are kind of resistant to going to fit model and you're like, I'm just going to keep pursuing bikini, even though I know I'm not muscular enough for it. Even if you just take this year and maybe next year, half of next year, whatever, and you just say, let's see how far I could push fit model while I'm building into bikini. I think that I would tell everyone to do that, because it's much better to be at the top of a muscle of a division than at the bottom of another division. because you're not going to win at the bottom of a division, but at the top of the division where you're like, the judges are like, I wouldn't get any bigger. That's usually when you're winning.
That's the sweet spot.
The sweet spot.
And then you don't even have to try extra hard to get to that point. It's like you're there. You can kind of relax a little bit and not have to stress about making a lot of these big physique adjustments.
Yeah. And you're seeing girls right now who have been NPC bikini competitors for, some of them for years. They were never able to do anything, never even able to win an overall in bikini. And now all of a sudden they're stars in fit model. Everyone's talking about them. You see them all over the place because they won an overall. Even just winning an overall right now in a fit model show, you're getting a bunch of limelight, right?
Yeah.
And what's funny is that when it first happened, the girls who won overalls in fit model, they were all over. And now we're already starting to see it's dying down a little bit, where if you win an overall at a local show, now it's not as much publicity. So I'm telling you guys, winning the first pro show, going pro, getting that, I guess the followers following you on this journey, like right now is the time to strike. You don't want to strike when it's 3 years and there's 15,000 fit model competitors. Like, get out there and compete now.
Right. Yeah. It's only going to get harder, I would say.
100%. Yeah.
Only going to get harder. So even if you are questioning like, oh, but maybe I'm not ready. I just need, tighten up a little more. I would say that, really take a look at what they're judging and how they're judging. So maybe you don't have to be as critical of yourself, especially as they're figuring things out. But just don't overthink it. It's a new division and it's scary to everyone. You are not the only one that's questioning if you're ready or not. It's scary. I understand. It's so new. So just don't overthink things. But I would also add on to this, tips for first time competitors entering fit model. I would say expand this to any division. Is one of my big things I always preach is do not get so caught up on number placements in the beginning. I actually just made a post about this. Yeah. My first competition, guys, the Arnold Amateur, I got 14th place in my height class, not overall, in my height class, But what did I do after that? I researched what I need to do better. I made the improvements, I made the adjustments. I made a suit upgrade, my tan, my hair, my posing, my everything. And sure enough, I ended up doing a lot better because the following year I got first place overall at the Arnold Amateur. Okay. So this goes to show you, just because you don't do well your first show or first few shows, that doesn't mean you're not a good competitor. It just means you haven't figured it out yet. And the people you see at the top, you didn't see when we got 14th place. You didn't see when we, tied for last or got third call out. You never see that, but it happens to everyone. Everyone on that Olympia stage has experienced that, the climb to the top, or some people got lucky and they found success quickly, but then as they turned pro, they didn't do as well. So it's a journey. Okay. Don't think that your success is determined by that first placement. You have a lot of learning to do. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. I still make mistakes, not as much as I used to, but they happen. So they're more prevalent in the beginning. So just allow yourself some grace.
That was good. Yeah. I think that was well executed, that question.
I got a lot of practice.
With that
speech.
You do. It is a good one. I'm trying to think of anything else in the fit model. I think we got it. I will say too, be prepared for a longer journey on top of that. That's like you said, because I run into that too. What I guess the expectations, especially when you do reach that pro level, it might take you, I see some of these bikini pros that do 20 shows before they get a pro card, before they get an Olympia qualification. Like some never do, even with 20 shows, and it's so the journey, your journey, you need to figure out this is worth it to you or not to go on that journey. And that's something I've talked to a few bikini pros about, as of late too, is like, if it's worth it to you, it has to be worth it to you. It might take you 20 shows, and that's crazy to say, but it's the reality of things. A lot of these bikini pros, it's 5 shows, 8 shows a year. Maybe they'll place a couple times and then they start getting closer and closer, and then it just has to be worth it. And there's an investment of time, effort, and money that goes into it. And then once you get to that level, that top level, that's when everything starts happening though. The sponsorships, all the fun things, you being more competitive, getting to the Olympia, your trips being paid for to get to the Olympia, like, things like that. So, just understand it is a long process to get to that stage, and it's going to take you a few years and it has to be worth it to you, So that's something I would say too. All right. So our next question comes from Poogs, and I assume it's her question. I can't really see the profile picture.
Yes.
Oh, my camera's blocking. Okay. That's just an interesting name. How do you get your glute tie-ins without having hamstring separation? That's a good question.
Mhm.
And the way you do that, and this is confusing to a lot of people because it's kind of the opposite of what it would seem, what it would appear. But if you get really lean and you don't have a lot of hamstring fullness, you're going to be able to see the separation lines and really just like also like the tendons of the hamstrings a lot more. But if you have more muscle in the hamstrings and it kind of fills that area out a little bit more, all that muscle is really tight. You're going to see the hamstring on the sides kind of show their separation, but not down the middle. And a lot of times I think it's people will think the opposite. They'll have very little hamstring development, but they'll have a lot of striations in their hamstrings and they'll be like, oh, I just have too much development in my hamstrings and it shows too much detail. And I'm like, no, the reason you have so much detail is because you don't have enough development. And that's a one muscle that goes the other way in that one, where you'll see a lot more tendons, a lot more separation lines. So the key is going to be to have a good amount of development and fullness. And that's why you'll see some of these top pros that they have crazy tie-ins, but they don't have any hamstring separation. And you're like, how do they do that? Well, they have really good roundness to their and fullness to their hamstrings. You're a good example of that. You don't have a lot of vertical separation in your hamstring because you have round, bubbly hamstrings, and because they're so full, you don't see that through it as easily. So that's going to be the key. A lot of people will get that one wrong specifically. That one requires more muscle to show less. So of course they could show more if they wanted to, but to show less of it while standing there in that back pose, that having more fullness is key.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Should coaches let their athletes compete even if they are not stage ready? I think my answer might surprise you. I'm going to say yeah, but the athlete needs to be aware. That is my big, you have to tell the athlete, hey, you're not ready. Your chances are not right, or your chances aren't good of you doing well here. But we have to step back and ask ourselves, why is this athlete stepping on stage? I think that's going to give us the answer that we're looking for. Is this athlete going in to win? Then no, don't let them compete if they're not stage ready. If your athlete's like, no, I'm in it to win it. I'm here for the dub, It's all about being realistic here. But if your athlete is more like, hey, this is a bucket list for me. I never thought I could ever reach this point. I lost, a lot of weight. I had 4 kids and I just really want to get on stage. I know I'm not going to win, but I'm here for the experience. I would say, yeah, that's fine. As long as the athlete knows. So I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah. So there's a lot of parts of this, right? And I am a fan of, there's a lot of parts of it. I will say the athlete, it's their money. If they want to compete, let them do whatever they want. The other thing too is like, you'll see people who are not competitive or not ready and they'll go on stage and like, you'll see people will bash them in comments and whatever. I'm like, how are they really affecting you? Like, who cares? Like if someone's doing it and they look out of, how is it affecting you at all? What does it matter? Right now, should they be on stage? I'm not a 6'7" basketball player. I shouldn't be in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like, there's always that route of taking it and it's accurate, technically, no, they shouldn't be on stage and not ready yet. Now, the other thing is too, a lot of times people will say like what you're saying is, maybe they've lost 100 pounds. And then the argument is, well, this isn't a transformation contest. You're either ready or you're not. It's not a matter of how much you lost. It's a matter of if you look the part or not. So I agree with all parts of it on that too. I agree with that statement, but I also agree, hey, this person did lose 100 pounds. If they want to spend the money and get on stage and they know they're not going to win, like you're saying, then whatever, let them, what does it affect you? You know what I mean? Who cares? It's more dollars to the show, keep shows going, keep shows growing. And with another thing too, is a lot of times, if you've been to enough shows, I can't even tell you how many, I've probably been to 1,000 shows. If you've been to enough shows, you'll find that the better people are, the less fans they bring to like NPC shows. Not like your level, but like NPC shows. When you have someone who's like a killer, right? And they're there to win it and they look the part and the thing is they've done 20 shows. So their fan base isn't their like first show fan base, and they're kind of, the thing is the better people are, the worse they kind of think they are. They're always like, yeah, I'm going to do this show, but I'm kind of do it low pro. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do. I'm not feeling like that great. My glutes aren't where they should be yet. And they just like destroy the competition. And then you have your first timer, they put everything into it. All their friends come, 20 people are in the audience. Even if their friends know, hey, they're out of like, they're not in great shape and they're clearly going to get last place here, they'll have 30 friends there, right?
Yeah.
It makes the shows, that's what makes the shows run, guys.
And you know what, too, is we've even seen it in the last few shows that like sometimes those are the happiest athletes.
Yeah.
Like they're just, you see them walk off stage and they're like so excited just to get on. Of course, they didn't win. They didn't expect it, but it brings them so much joy, you know, and sometimes there's a story behind it that we were unaware of.
Yeah. And so, you know, in terms of, you know, you got to understand, guys, a lot of you have never don't understand the promotion side of things and the promoters and how much or how little they make. You know, obviously promoters is just like, it's just like our sport. You have your top promoters that are the Olympia level top guys and they're making great money, but you got to understand they all started at like an NPC kind of level too. And they all started the grind and not making any money and hoping to just cover the cost of a show. And now they finally done it for 20 years. And now they're like, you know, the Miss Olympia of promoters. They need to make money too. And without them putting that effort in, and a lot of them aren't at first with their first few years of shows. It takes a few years to get shows going. I promoted 2 shows, co-promoted 2 shows. My first show I made $4,200, $4,200. And it took, I was like, dude, this is not even like so much work and driving and promo and handshaking and getting sponsors. I'm like, dude, screw this. Like, screw that. That is dollars per hour was like $4 probably. It was like so much work for that. Right. And I'm like, this is what you guys go. So I did it twice. And yeah, but the other one was less than that. But the first one was so much more money. There was so much more effort. I was like, dude, there's no way, you know, it's so much work, guys. So you know what? I wouldn't do anything but discourage people from doing these shows because the only reason we have such great venues is we have great promoters trying to step it up and they're spending like dollar per dollar to get you guys like on stage. Or like some of these guys are like at a 1-for-1 and just hoping to break even at shows, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time and he doesn't mind. I don't think he minds if I tell this story, but it was Tamer El-Gindi, and he did the show during COVID. Yeah, this story. And it touched my heart. I'll always be loyal to Tamer and Tarek for this. And so we were here at the time we were from Denver. We had a bunch of athletes going to a show in Vegas. We brought our whole team to Vegas. We had, I think it was a big crew. It was like 17 people. It was a lot of people. And then we were at the show. I think we're at Alexis Park. And then as the show started happening, me and Ashley were going to have a posing seminar.
Yeah, the check-ins.
Yeah. And then it was either Tarek or Tamer told us like, hey, we're going to have to pass on the seminar right now. And I was like, okay, I didn't know why. You know, we had no clue why, but they all started like whispering and talking. Find out that the city came in and shut down Alexis Park during COVID and they couldn't have the show, right? They couldn't have the show at Alexis Park. So we have all these athletes and they're at check-ins. They figured this out. Tamer and Tarek, they left check-ins. We had no idea what was going on. We wake up to an email. I got a text from Tamer, I think it was, and he was like, hey, the show's going to be at this location instead now, which was this like little hookah bar, right? We still didn't know what was going on, but we're like, what the hell's going on, right? I think you sent me the message, like, did you see this email? Whatever. Anyway, trying to figure it out. They were up all night trying to find a location. At about 4 p.m. the day before, they rented out a hookah lounge that's open at night. So they did the show in the morning at the hookah lounge. They got rid of all the tables. They moved everything. They had this stage from your friend, right? The girl we went to her house when she has like a gym in her house. She had the stage was like from her. Yeah. And so they had a makeshift stage. They cleared out a room. We walked into the hookah lounge. I'm like, what's going on, guys? And then they told me, oh, the city shut us down. This is the best we could do. Hope it's okay. The athletes, we could only have a certain amount of people in here at a time. And the athletes were like outside, but they made it work, right? It was crazy. They sat me, luckily they let me in. They sat me in this like seat behind stacked tables, I was like peeking. There's literally tables and chairs stacked all around me. And I'm like, they're like, could you sit here? Is it cool? I'm like, dude, you guys, I don't care. It's so, and they made it the coolest party like ever on the inside. Tamer and Tarek are going nuts. Their dad's there. They're like, they're crazy Brazilians, right? With their music and their loudness and their fun and their energy. It was so fun. To this day, that's the funnest show I've ever been to in my life. Nothing will ever top
I
that
couldn't
show.
even go to it
You could get
because they limited the people that were able to actually see
Yeah.
it. So I was not important.
yes. I'm sure they would have let you in. They would have probably let you in. But
I don't want to try.
it was like me, and then they let like the trainer in that time, because I brought a big team.
Yes,
so
yes.
so it was, so they put me in a chair, and they were just having so much fun, and I'm like, this is so crazy what these promoters are going through.
Yeah.
And then I talked to Tamer after the show. The city came in eventually, and they said, you can't do it, even though you're doing it the right way. You still can't do it. We got through it though. They got through the overall. The overalls with like no music at the end. We ended up winning the overall that day in Bikini. And after the show, I'm like, hey man, thanks for the extra effort. I know you guys went through a lot. And he's like, Adam, I hope this was good enough for you. And we tried. I'm like, dude, I had so much fun. I know you went through some shit to make this show happen. And I'm sure it came at an expense too. He's like, Adam, I've never been so happy to lose $20,000 in my life, which I think is probably an accurate number. Because the hookah place was not cool to them. They were like a desperation thing to rent that place out. There was a high price. So the whole point of it is like the amount of emotion that was going through when the city came in, right? Like Tamer and Tarek were like clearly emotional. Like, hey, we're trying to do this for these athletes. Like, we're not making money here, They're like, we know we're not like doing it. You're going to try to find us. We're already losing money, and we're just trying to stay in business and give these athletes what they want to do. They have nothing going for them right now besides the gym. And like, this is an opportunity for them. They just want to open up, now that we know,
right.
It was total BS the whole time. They should have been open the whole time. But it's just the passion that these like promoters have and what they put into these shows. Like, you guys don't understand. Right. So, anyway, I'll always be loyal to those two. We've gone through some shit together. Right. But it just shows you like what the promoters actually go through it. So, you know what, if someone shows up who's not fully ready and they put 30 butts in seats, let's celebrate that, because these promoters go through, they're not like these like crazy rich guys that are just, oh, I made $1 million at this show because I had 100 people show up. It doesn't work that way. You're paying for judges, flights, hotels of the judges. The shows are crazy expensive. They have crews of 30 people setting up. I'm not doing it again. I'm not like, I'll help, but I'm not going to, I'll judge, but I'm not going to promote again, because I know what it takes to get there. And it's just a thing. People don't know that it takes it's a climbing level, just like competing, and you see these girls who compete at shows and they spend $30,000 getting to the Olympia, getting to that high level. And I'm like, that's so much money, but now they're making money finally. That's the same thing that promoters go through. They lose money sometimes. Maybe they break even for a few years and then they make it. And then they have these guys that are big companies like Muscle Contest and Wings of Strength, whatever they have now, but it doesn't just start like that. So so what I'm going to say is that, and there's a long story, but it's a fun story. Long story is, if someone's selling 30 seats, they're a little out of shape, they're having fun, what does it affect you? Just let it do it,
I would also say that there's a benefit to that. You get it, even if you don't think you're 100% ready, you can still get a preview, because if you've never competed before, you don't know what you act like. You don't have a size comparison to go off of. Like, people, when they meet me, for example, they're like, oh my God, you're a lot smaller in real life, because you think that I'm like jacked and huge because you see my stage photos. But you have no idea until you're standing next to your fellow competitors where you stack up. You could be already too big. You could be too small. You really don't know. So it's nice to have a little bit of a preview with that. Also, I would hesitate to, make people think they have to be like super 100% like Olympia ready to even step on stage. Because at what point do you wait until you're 100% ready? Like, until you look like me? And then you can compete in the NPC. Like, what level are we're trying to achieve here? You have to use it as there has to be a stepping stone no matter what. So you might as well just figure out where you stand and stack up next to people. The only thing I would like to add on to this whole speech about competitors not being ready when they compete is, I would highly suggest not to do a national level show unless you're ready.
Yeah.
That is the disclaimer I'm giving, because
I draw the line there too.
Yes, that is where I draw the line, because if you're going into a show expecting like fun, I'm doing this just for the experience, you're not going to have a good experience at the nationals if you're not ready, because what's going to happen is you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. You're going to have resentful attitude towards the sport. You're going to get discouraged. It's not going to be a fun experience.
It never
like
works
you
out
think.
good.
It's not the experience you're thinking. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to my local show and, there's 8 other competitors that are at the same conditioning level as me. You're not going to see that. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So That is my only, I guess, disclaimer with that.
Yeah. It's never fun feeling good and feeling fit and then walking away from a show feeling like the least fit person at the show.
By far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at nationals, it's not a fun
And
experience. So, like,
sometimes we'll see them and you're like, oh, no one told him that this is like, you shouldn't do
at
that.
the national, like, it's like you have no one in your corner telling you like it's not time yet, So yeah, nationals, I'll agree there. It's a different place. And a lot of times I will get competitors that say, I just want to go for the experience. I'm like, it's not a good experience.
Don't get that experience at nationals.
It's not like it's
get that at a local show.
There's nothing different about it. It's just better people. There's no difference of it besides it's bigger, it's better people, it's better judges, right? The bigger judges. And it's just like a regular, so just do regular shows,
Yes.
So, and yeah, that's where, so I'll tell people, I just always tell them 100%, I'm just always upfront with them at it. And I just say, hey, right now we'd be fighting for, somewhere in the 3rd through 6th kind of position with where you're at. If you're going to want to be 3rd through 1st position, you're going to need to be X better. If you want to go to nationals, you're going to need to be X better. And if you want to compete and being in that 6th through 3rd position, then that's fine. I rarely get someone who is like very out of shape who wants to do a show. I've never had
a really tough conversation either. I think most time athletes understand if they're not ready, they try not to engage in that. But like, we see it happen.
I have seen there's one thing going viral online right now. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah. So, but again, it's one of those situations. She knows,
so it's fine.
She talks about it openly.
I'm like, I support that 100%. She knows that as long as she knows and the coaches know and there's no surprise.
Yeah. And she's doing it with her dad and that's cool too.
I like that idea. I don't know why there's so much negativity with that.
Yeah. It's like, what does it bother you?
Oh, by the way, we should probably mention what we're thinking because
I don't know.
Maybe they didn't see. There's a competitor that's gone viral online. She's not competition ready, but
she knows it.
And people are kind of saying that she doesn't belong on stage, things like that. And that doesn't bother me. It just, she knows, so it's fine.
Yeah. And then there is a governing, I guess, scenario. The promoters can govern who does their shows. They always have the option of saying, you're not ready, whatever. I don't think she's going to be in a shape where that would even be a consideration, but it would be like if something was really, really off, something was like almost not taking it seriously, they can always say, hey, not right now, that type of thing. So, they already have that, guys, and she's not going to qualify for it. So yeah, let her have fun, let her have her fun, and maybe it'll motivate her to get on stage the next time and be in better shape. It's one of those things where as a coach, I'm going to try to tell them, hey, you're not ready. And if you're just going to jump on stage, I probably won't be their coach, for that. Cause it is a business, guys. I want my physiques to represent me. They do represent me. And I'm going to be like, I don't want that physique to represent, my work, that type of thing. So like an artist, they wouldn't put out their work when it was halfway done. That's me. But if it's someone that's like a transformation and they look mostly the part, I'm not going to say that to them.
Yeah.
It would be like, oh, you have 50 pounds to go. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Like, let's just step back, step back here. But if they're a transformation, they lose, 50 pounds, maybe they still have 10 to go and they look pretty good. Yeah. Why not? I'll throw them up there. So yeah, let them have fun. And as long as they know, they're going to be like, hey, this is your first one.
Might be a wake up call.
Yeah. This is a scenario, why not? So, all right. This is going to be a good question that's probably good for both of us, honestly. Questions from My Yang 92. What systems, I can't wait for one of those names to come in. That's going to be one of those names that we get caught on. Those names that they do. Like there's a guy who was on the news and he got caught. You see it. They'll send in these fake names on their, like Bart Simpson used to do it.
Yeah. Like Ben Dover.
Yeah. Like Ben. Yeah. we're going to get one of these days. It's going to be so funny. So anyway, what systems do you have in your life to balance it all? Family, work, relationships, business, etc.
Systems. Wow, that seems quite complex. Yes. I don't know. I have a whole system. I will say just keep it easy. Like I keep it simple. I'm not claiming to have the most friends, but the friends I have understand. And I think in comparison to most people, I have less drama in my life because of that. Yeah. I noticed that. Like I don't have a lot of chaos in my life right now. So that's a good thing. But I just keep it easy, I don't overwhelm myself when it comes to like biz. I don't like to overwhelm myself as a competitor. Adam knows I'm an athlete first until the day I retire. So I make that a point. So whatever that looks like for you, have your standards, have your You're, you know, you got to put your foot down for some things, especially when it comes to relationships and what is being supportive and not. But yeah, I think that will look so different for a lot of people. But for me, I just keep it close, keep it non-dramatic.
Yeah.
I guess.
We both have that. We both just
Okay.
don't have big circles. We have small circles,
Yes.
you know. You're at the top of my friend list, really, and I have like very few friends
Oh.
well, I have very few people I talk to, very few like friends, and I keep my circle very very small, which includes very little drama. But you know, the thing is too, I think the way my life has always been that I never have gone out, I don't drink, I don't party, I don't, you know, do any of that stuff. And I think because of that, it makes it just kind of fits this a little bit easier. So I think for some people that's not going to be realistic, you know, with their lifestyles. But also I would say one of the biggest parts of why my life is easy now, with how crazy my life, our lives are actually pretty crazy when you think about it.
It's crazy, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Like we choose it to be crazy.
Yeah.
We choose it.
The thing that we've done really well that you probably, I'm sure you realize it, but maybe you didn't think about it at the time, but the people we chose as our partners in our life,
yes,
it is very tolerable to our lifestyle.
Oh yes,
and that is a huge thing.
It is a huge thing, because if you have a partner
Hugo's
that does,
dream, man.
Yeah, right.
I would have such a hard time dating you. You are gone so much.
Dude, just like you
so
say,
much.
I look good on paper. I realize that
Yeah.
applies to me too. I look good on paper, but man, when you live with me,
Yeah.
I'm gone a lot. I get cranky sometimes, you know, you better not touch my chicken, things like that.
Yeah, me and Ashley have a good like friend relationship too. So we talk about relationship stuff and whatever too. And I told her that I was like, you know what, Ashley, like, you're not the easiest girl to date. Like, you're gone all the time. You can never go out and eat. You go to
for the
sleep
jealous
early.
people,
Like,
I do get a lot of attention, I would say.
Yeah.
So that can
you're on the
irritate.
gram. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the gram, you know. I'm doing interviews.
Wrapped in
you know?
telephone wire.
Yeah. I'm jet setting, you know,
Yeah.
doing my seminars, you know.
So it's so, you know, but you picked the right people. And I think that was an important part too. When, you know, as a coach, I will say I've dated regular girls, like regular
Mhm.
non-competitor. There's no way that'll work.
Yeah.
Zero chance. Like, I tried it. It just no. As I when I was, you know, single, people like, there's always this weird thing. It's like, well, you know, coaches shouldn't date competitors or whatever. I'm like, who do you expect them?
Yeah, where else are you spending your time?
Yeah, where do you,
Like,
who's gonna understand being around these girls?
A librarian, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
it's not your worlds.
Yeah, and then and then when you're in these seminars and you're traveling around all these girls, they're always way too jealous to be around that scenario. It's not secure enough. But if you're dating a competitor, you're with a competitor and she's part of it or whatever, then it makes it a lot more doable. So I will say finding the right person is going to be key for that. You know, obviously if someone is anti bodybuilding and anti all this stuff, it's going to be really difficult. You know, one of the reasons I knew Kimber right away. I was like, oh, I'm going to wife her up for sure. You know, I married Kimber 7 weeks after dating her. 7 weeks. Everyone thought I was crazy. And to be honest,
what worked?
3-year anniversary last week.
There you go.
3-year anniversary last week.
And happy birthday and anniversary, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. So the reason, you know, what's funny is when I used to see people who would do that, and I was like, you're crazy, dude. Like, were you desperate? Like, what are you doing? Like, right? Like, I mean, like, you're crazy. And then I talked to so many people that were in these long marriages, and they're all the same way. Mm-hmm. You know, Jeff Taylor had a crazy story he told me too. And who else told me a story? They met someone after 2 weeks, they got married, and they were together like 20 years. Jeez. I was like, this is way more common than I thought it was. Of course, it was a more of an older way of thinking, but I have an old mind, I think, when it comes to like traditionals and stuff. So, you know, I think that you're going to have some shared interest to be successful, or at least a lot of shared understanding. Maybe they're not a competitor, but they eat the way you do. They go to the gym the way you do. They understand that you're not going to be able to eat out, you know, every weekend and go out to dinner every weekend. Like, these things become more easy. You know, Kimber's in prep right now, and, you know, we're not eating out as much, but she has her free meal every once in a while, and we take advantage of it. And I'm like, oh, cool. We got to go somewhere to eat. You know, maybe it's somewhere like super healthy, like we go to this sushi place where they'll make everything for her specifically, where it's not, you know, that hard. But I think that's going to be the biggest part. Your biggest part is going to be your partner understanding but because you have a partner that understands
Mhm.
and I have a partner that understands, like it's not a big deal. You know, it
It's
works
like,
out really well.
yeah, one less thing to worry about, having to explain everything.
Yeah. And you know, Kimber's like, oh, are you going to go to this show? She buys the ticket, like, you know, my card. But she like, I'll book your tickets for you. I'll do this for you. And I'm just like, this is sweet. You know, it works out
That's
really well.
perfect. I like her even just for that sole purpose alone, because you're really bad at it.
I know. I buy them like last minute. It's like $400 more. And I'm like,
and you can't even get on my flight sometimes. And so even if it was just for that purpose,
Yeah,
very beneficial.
She's already looking at the Mile High flights. She was like sending me the Mile High flights and stuff. And that was like a month ago. I'm like, you're thinking about it. I'm like, it's like 2 months away. She's like, yeah, that's when you book flights. And I was like, that's chaos. I'm like, well, wait, we'll just figure it out later. Yeah, remember I used to fly to LA and not even have a room before we would like stay at each other's houses. And I'm like, oh, I'll just see what comes up available. I stayed at a couple of shady places in LA. You know how I like to save money.
I know.
That was dangerous. You can't, don't go to LA and try to save money on hotels. I'll give you that word of advice right now. So, okay, next question. Let's see here. Did we miss anything else?
No, I think we covered that one.
Yeah. But I feel like there's the work part of it. I don't feel like that's big, that hard.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on your own work. I mean, some people are nurses or overnight, have to do something overnight versus someone that has a more consistent 9 to 5. So I think that one's really difficult for us to answer unless we would know your exact scenario.
Yeah.
But people make it work. I know that. It just looking at your own, how you're spending your time and things like that. Okay.
Next question from Tiana.
Oh, Tiana. Hey, that's a familiar name.
Yeah,
Tiana.
Tiana's getting ready for a show.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right. Biggest pet peeve, most annoying assumptions about staying leaner in the off season.
That it's unhealthy.
Yeah, I would say.
Do you have an eating disorder for looking like a normal fit person rather than someone that just doesn't care about their health? I don't know.
Yeah. So my whole thing on staying leaner in the off season is not staying stage lean. And you could even, see, Tiana and Tiana's a good example of that. Mm-hmm. She didn't stay stage lean the whole time. Either. Yeah.
People think I do, but I don't, I swear.
I think my biggest pet peeve is they think just being fit, which you should be.
Yes.
If you're a professional fitness athlete, you should be fit at all times of the year.
Yes.
There never should be a time where you see a bikini athlete in the off season and wonder if she works out.
Yes. Like and that happens. That. Like I never want to get to the point where I don't look the part.
It's so crazy to me where you'll see some people in the off season where it's like, I'm like, how did you even do that? Because I'm not a competitor right now, but I'm fit. And there's no one that you're going to see be like, oh, he's not pretty fit. Like he's a pretty fit guy. And I'm not even trying.
Yes.
Like I'm not trying that hard. It's not that hard. Like I work out, 5-6 days a week.
And that's not even your job. Well, you're a coach, but your job isn't an athlete.
I literally work out pretty hard. Okay. And I eat pretty good. Like how hard is it to stay in shape? You know what I mean? It's not that hard. You just don't you have to put effort in, especially if you're like genetically one of these people who can be a pro to not be in shape. I don't get it. And so what I think is every fitness person who does it as a sport, you should just look fit all the time. Not be shredded lean, but look the part. Look like you are an athlete. Look like you are maybe not even look like a competitor, but like a fit person.
Someone that works out. Like I always like to think of myself as like in the off season, I just look like a normal fit person. But when I'm competing and I'm shredded and I'm on stage, that's I'm an impressive fitness person. So just a little more impressive sometimes, a little less.
Yeah.
But
So my whole thing is the coping that people do where they're trying to justify being clearly from being, there's 2 in shape, right? Stage lean is 2 in shape. Then there's in shape, which is where we should all be always, right? Fit in shape. And then there's out of shape. And the problem is that people will start defining healthy as out of shape. Right. And then that's where it really makes me mad. I'm like, you're promoting people being out of shape, not being healthy. Like that's not balanced. Being out of shape and then being shredded lean is not balanced. So that's the biggest thing. My biggest pet peeve is where people get very out of shape and then they call that balance. And everyone who's also doing that doesn't want to face reality. They know they went too far and they cope by saying, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. Ashley's skinny and needs to eat a hamburger because she's up only 10 pounds from stage weight or whatever it is. And that's the thing that drives me the craziest because I'm like, you guys are putting out sending the wrong messages, and you have people that are following you that are also going to think that that's normal to do that, to just eat everything, not work out as intensely, and be basically unfit during the off season and then be fit again and going from these extremes, so that's my biggest pet peeve about it. I like to get people in shape and keep people in shape. I don't think that I think that that's what everyone would desire if they had to put it on paper.
Mhm.
If there was a magic pill that we could take that would just keep us all in shape with no effort, everyone would take that pill.
Yes.
No one wouldn't take that pill. So, so people saying otherwise are just coping with their destructive behavior. And those are the people that don't last in the sport. They might give you a few years like that, but eventually it's just not worth it.
I just love to use myself an example. There's a reason I'm still here. That's all
Yeah.
I gotta say.
Yeah.
And I think I'm the last of a dying breed, unfortunately, Adam.
I don't know. I still have hope. I still have hope. The good thing is I would say a lot of the people I work with, like, at first they find it intimidating to like stay in shape because they have this perception, I got to stay stage lean, I got to be doing all this cardio. And then after they work with me for like a year and they're like, oh, I just didn't eat like a jerk. That's like literally all it was.
That's my best advice for
Yeah.
staying lean in the off season. That's my best advice.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple.
They're like, I still have 1,000 calories a week that I can use however I want to use them. They'll eat a donut here, 2 donuts a week, whatever, a free meal once a week. And then the rest of the time they're eating a decent amount of calories, but it's not more than crazy. They're not, like we talked about last week, they're not getting like full all the time.
Yes.
It's not living full. And I think that that's the problem, is that people still, I think that's the biggest problem, is that people think full, 100% full and stuffed is the baseline of normal, of what you should be at.
Yeah.
And which it isn't, because that means you're way past surplus. Like you're way past maintenance. You're
if
like
you're
surplus.
Waking up and you're still full, like that's probably too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's not an eating fest in the off season. It's like
that's where the
people think it's a party.
That's the problem. The eating fest is just obesity, and then there's like fit is always watching what you eat. And that's, people don't get that. It takes effort all the time, guys. Sorry, you're in a sport of dieting. that is the sport. It should be called, maybe you should call it bodybuilding. You should call it body dieting.
That's true.
Like it is true. You're dieting more than you're lifting weights.
Yeah, and that's the hard part of this. I think no one in our sport dreads lifting. They love it. But when it comes to diet and cardio, they're like, no. Yeah. So someone asked Perla, how can you make sure to have a good poop on show day? Serious question. LOL. If you know, you know. Well, Perla, ideally you want your digestion to be pretty regular. And I know you're a big fan of psyllium husk, right?
Yeah.
Fiber, things like that. But if you think, here's what happens as you get closer to show day is sometimes you're not eating as much, or you're maybe not eating as many vegetables or things to help you go. Sometimes maybe considering senna might be good, but don't try that for the first time on show day. That's something you try maybe a few weeks before to see how your body tolerates it, reacts with it, but it can help you get a predictable movement on show day. And just research it, senna.
Yeah. I would say that's pretty much dead on. And then also just having some understanding and expectations of how your regularity will really be affected, especially if you're doing things like, if you're doing depletion days, which a lot of people do in their peak week, where you basically don't have any carbs, like the first 3 days of like a peak week. That's pretty common. I add fats on those days during those depletion days, which helps keep things going a little bit. But the sheer volume of food is so little that nothing's like really pushing through. And then on Thursday and Friday, when you introduce carbs again, for most people usually that'll get things going on Thursday and Friday. But if you're still not, maybe you didn't have a big carb load and you didn't have that much volume, and sometimes we'll decrease protein on Thursday and Friday because of the extra calories, and you're already having all this extra fats and carbs. And maybe you're just still not going. Then it introduce like psyllium husk or something, but I don't want to introduce it for the first time at that point. I want to make sure that you're good with it and you've had it before.
That's bad idea to introduce that like on peak week.
Yeah.
Like you might time things really badly.
Yeah. It wouldn't be something that I'd want to do on like Saturday morning. That's for sure. Yeah. There's no way. So, or even a Friday night thing, cause it's it could make you could have some bloating from that too. And you might not be regular and just be a little bit bloated from it. So
true.
Yeah.
True.
So there you go.
All right.
But yeah, do understand that your digestion will be affected with lower food volume, especially with high protein, low food volume, low carb volume, low fiber volume, low fat volume. All of those things. The fats kind of like help lubricate things and get things moving. So when you're having like just a pure protein diet, it's like the worst for your digestive system and being regular. So you might need some help with that. Yeah.
Explain the perfect bone structure from bikini, or explain the perfect bone structure for bikini top to bottom. So that's a really good question. Now, with bikini, we got to realize it's not figure. So we don't really want to, first and foremost, let's kind of explain the difference between an hourglass and an X frame. So I feel like the word X frame used to be used to apply to bikini, but in reality, what the word everyone was looking for was hourglass. Okay. So what do we see when we see an X frame? We see broad shoulders, tiny waist, oftentimes either your quads are a little more sticking out a little bit, or your hips perhaps. But with bikini, we don't want to see like a drastic angle, especially in the lats, right? So what do we mean by that? If you think of like an upside down triangle, right? That would be an ideal shape for a figure competitor. Not so much for bikini. So for bikini, it's more of like a curved angle rather than a sharp angle. Am I doing a good job with this?
That's a good, yeah.
Okay, continue my thought process.
Yeah, I would say a good visual for people would be looking at the figure Miss Olympia champion, and that is an X frame, wide shoulders, sharp lats,
Sharp. That's a good, that's what I'm looking for.
Small waistline. They both have small waistlines. And I think that's where people get confused. They both have small waistlines. A lot of times people will say, oh, I got a wider waistline, so I should do figure. And I'm like, figure, you're facing straight on in figure. If anything, it's worse. You're facing straight on.
A small waistline is beneficial in every
division. Yeah. There's not a division that favors a wide waistline.
Yeah.
Yeah. People will do that all the time. And I'm like, there's not a division that favors that wide waistline, especially figure, because figure you're facing straight on, So, and so think about that. And then also think, we call 3D glutes, which is basically how the hips come off of the waistline. So your hips are here, then your waistline goes here, and then your curve up. You don't go, hips wide, small, and then sharp up like that. So it is it's still hourglass. I guess you'd say Coke bottle versus upside down Dorito.
Yes, that's a good way to describe it.
Is there a right side up Dorito? I guess intuitively we would think, right? Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
Upside down Dorito.
I always just think of it upside down.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
Yes.
But I guess that's it. There technically, is there actually?
And then as far as other things that would be beneficial for bikini on the structure, I guess that when we're talking about that, it's more like the bone structure itself. But if we're talking about like muscle and things like that, in bikini, you do not want to be quad dominant. Whereas in figure, you probably want to be a little more quad dominant. Figure doesn't really favor glutes as much as bikini either. You'll see a lot of figure competitors have more of a different shape of the glute. I don't know how to describe it. It's more flat for sure. But
it's more, you know what it is? It's square? More of a glute that you would get from not doing a lot of glute isolation exercises. We're doing compound leg exercises. So if someone only did, basically compound leg exercises and things that were, more quad dominant, like leg press, squats, things like that are a little bit more quad dominant. We didn't do things like that weren't doing hip thrusts and glute bridges and glute kickbacks, things like that. That's kind of like where the glutes would be developed at, and that's what they're doing for their sport. I think probably all of those, women who are that muscular could probably develop glutes like that if they really focused on it, but it's just not the focus of that division. So it's a, 50% developed as a bikini competitor's glutes, maybe a little bit more.
So it might be safe to say where you're able to accumulate muscle will heavily determine that as well. So maybe those figure competitors, even if they did isolate their glutes, perhaps they could never get the density. We don't know. I'm sure a lot of them could though.
Yeah. But a lot of them don't have the hip width.
Yes. The hip width, that's a good point with bikini. With that hourglass, in order to have the hourglass, you do need to have like hip width, so that's definitely a plus of being a bikini competitor. I would even say mine isn't super wide, but also not narrow, but I also have like how do I say it? It's more like the iliac crest. Is that what it is that you said? High iliac crest to make it look kind of a little more tapered in. Am I describing this correctly? I'm just trying to say that I don't think I also have the widest hip, so it's not necessarily a deal breaker. Okay. So, Do you have a question for us?
No, I was trying to think of anything else too. And then Kimber came in and was
hi,
talking
Kimber. We're talking about you.
She was saying that she has less cramping on her stomach and less of a so basically another option that came up too for digestion. So on the last question. So yeah, well, thanks, Kimber. Hello, Kimber. So got my coffee from her. Best wife ever. She brings me a coffee, goes to the Dutch, gets a coffee like almost every morning.
Keep her.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's why I knew. 7 weeks, 3 years later. You're gonna mess this up?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Got breakfast, coffee, great girl. Just shares
and books your travel.
Books the travel, shares the job, shares the passion.
That's what's up.
Locking that up. No
That's
way. Not going anywhere. I'm gonna mess up. Hey, like a regular girl talk. Don't talk to me. Don't even mess me up. Get out of here. So all right. So what else in terms of bone structure?
Yeah. So when it comes to bone structure, it's probably,
joints matter too. Yeah. You want to have joints that aren't too thick, right? To bones that aren't too big. You want to have balanced bones from upper to lower body. You'll see some women, you'll see it in wellness a lot too, that it'll favor. That's why wellness will favor this a little more. Have like bigger bones on the lower body than the upper body.
Yes.
They're just built that way. You'll see it with the bigger ankles, the bigger knees.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want that in bikini. You want to be symmetrical joint wise, upper to lower body. You want to have good clavicle width, but not, crazy wide clavicle width. Basically feminine lines would be the best way of describing it. Very feminine lines, like hourglass, petite to medium, not anything that's too big.
Curve rather than sharp.
There you go. Yeah. It's tough to put into full words, but there's some good vision. There's basically, if you look at every Olympia champion since the beginning of Olympia champion, have been pretty much that. There's been only like one that was maybe more X-frame out of all of them. Two. Yeah, about two. So for the most part, they've all been favored the hourglass shape. So
maybe one.
Yeah,
now you got me thinking.
Yeah, now I'm trying to think too. There's clearly one. There's clearly
one that was very X-framed.
Very X-framed. And then I'm trying to think of who would else be numbered. So, but like mid. I think I know what you're talking about. The mid X-frame. Yeah. So it's, and that's a good point too, is if you are X-framed, let's say you're X-framed, well, clearly there's been Olympia winners that have been X-framed. So it does favor you just having to change some things around, change your posing around, change what you're focusing on growing around, and still, it still favors other physiques. So it's not like you can't be successful if you're X-framed.
You could go down the list and say, this person has this fall, this person has this fall. They don't fit, but at the end of the day, they won. Yeah. So like everyone's going to have like something going against them.
Mostly everyone's like mid something, like
you'll have mid.
Yeah. You'll have like,
I'm so mid.
Like you're mid, you're mid, small and medium, right? You're like at the midpoint, right? Your hip width is like medium, right? Yeah. So like everyone,
we avoid extremes in bikini. That's for sure. It's usually not the leanest either. It's not the softest. It's usually right in between. So I like to be in between, in the middle. And
everyone has kind of their issues too. Like everyone has it, which is like yours was shoulders for a long time. And then now they're not, but like, some people just can't get as lean, and can't get that tie in to fully show up. And some people come in too lean. They like them like that. It is really crazy to see how everyone kind of works around what they're born with, you can only do so much.
True.
So I guess we're at the 53-minute mark. I guess we could call it here and maybe do some more.
Yeah, this was a good episode though, guys. Thank you for participating. And please, if you can, continue with these awesome questions. They are what keeps us going here now.
Yeah.
We
I think
love
so.
it.
Let's do one. I think we have enough to do one more next week.
Okay.
Like, no, I'm saying like one more.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No,
continue this for another week.
A lot more. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. Keep these questions coming in, guys. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye.